Thank you for joining us today on the Insights and Happy New Year. Before we proceed into the program proper, we apologize for rescheduling from the usual time. And ladies and gentlemen, as we step forth into 2026, and here on the Insight is a special one. Ladies and gentlemen, as 2025 fares into history, Nigeria stands at a crossroads. Did we redefine our destiny or merely unmask our deepest fractures? From Tinubu's tax reform, sparking cost of living fury, to Atiku and Obi's mega party plotting a 2027 upset. Rivers State's governance implosion, US airstrikes shattering sovereignty on Christmas Day, and relentless abduction hurting the North. Today, we dissect the key takeaways, demand what must change, and define unbreakable priorities for 2026. And joining us today to x-ray the mega shifts and 2026 battle plan is Emeka Odom, journalist, development communication expert, and public affairs analyst. Sir, it's a pleasure to have you on the Insight.
Thank you so much for having me, and Happy New Year to you, and Happy New Year to your viewers.
Thank you. We're excited, you know, being that it's 1st of January 2026, and here we are. And instead of being somewhere celebrating, you're here with us to set the battle plan for 2026. But I want to ask, before we go into the discussion proper, for you, what are the key takeaways from 2025 in terms of security, politics, economically? What are the key takeaways for you?
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. Everybody, I'm sure you will agree with me, and so will every other person do. That the year 2025 was an eventful year in many aspects. Of course, first and foremost, we must be very grateful to God Almighty for granting us life, not just life, life that is full of good health, because we cannot be oblivious of the fact that there are many people who probably would have wished to move into 2026, but unfortunately they are not able to, not because of any bad thing they have done. Again, also, there are a lot of people also who have crossed into 2027, but may not have the opportunity, to move freely, either on, as a result of incarceration or incapacity. So if you are enjoying the freedom and the ability to move around very freely, move your legs, go where you want to go to, begin even before you begin to aspire or begin to look for other things, I think first and foremost you need to be very grateful to Almighty God. So also in that respect, we're also grateful to God that our country is in one piece. We must not take that for granted. There are just this morning, I was watching a piece on CNN, and I saw many countries, particularly, some countries in the Middle East. If you go to Iran now, there are some kind of, social unrest going on there because of people agitating, and there are many other countries where the year 2025 was so much, they had so much that, they don't even have the opportunity to begin to aspire for other good things, only asking for survival. So, but we are here, God has given us not just survival, He has given us many other things. However, we are also aware of the fact that the year 2025 was very eventful. It's a year that a lot of Nigerians had to grapple with a lot of challenges, dealing with harsh economic conditions, dealing with very unpredictable security situation. People had to, take extra measures to, ensure security, whether you are even in your house, you're not going anywhere, whether you are going to school with your children, whether you are traveling to the villages or even going to work, even moving within the town where other people would have hitherto considered, quite safe. So it was eventful in that respect. Again, also, the year 2025 was also one that we saw a lot of political, movements here and there. Prior to, as we prepare for the general elections in the next, we don't even know whether the election is later this year or next next year. We don't know yet. A lot of discussions are still going on to that effect. So, as a result of that, we have seen a lot of movements. A lot of people were looking forward to, some certain things happening, but unfortunately, those things didn't happen. Rather, what we saw was, in the political scene, more like a hurricane or an exodus of, you know, most of the governors in Nigeria moving in one direction, to the extent that a lot of people have, insinuated that the country is heading towards a one-party system. So the country is the 2025, presented a situation of what you may call a potpourri, a magazine of several things, happening at the same time. And so now a lot of those things probably did not, you know, properly present a complete appearance or a total resolution. It is now this 2026 that many of the things that happened in 2025 will become clearer for people to see. A lot of things that showed up, we didn't quite know, where they were heading to. But I believe very strongly that the events that are going to unfold in 2026 will give us a clearer direction where some things are actually heading to. Not just in the political scene, in the security scene, in personal lives, in businesses, and in many other aspects.
All right. Thank you very much. At least that's quite even those who are away from Nigeria. If you wake a dead man with the intro you've given about the happenings in Nigeria in 2025, the person will be able to catch up. But let me take you from the recent to us, going back. Like the Igbo say that he who doesn't know where the rain starts to beat him may not be able to know where the rain stops. But let's start from the issues, the topics that shaped Nigeria in 2025 for us to really get the agenda for 2026. Let's start from the issue of the tax, for example. The president has signed the new tax law, and he insisted that this new law takes effect from today. There's nothing anyone can do about it. Recently, a federal high court in Abuja, declined to give an order restraining the federal government from, letting that start. Now, I know you've taken a studied look at the whole scenario. Let's just start from the beginning. The issue of the gazetted law and what was passed. What's your opinion on that issue? Because a lot of analysts, for example, beyond analysts, even politicians like Atiku Abubakar has solicited a suspension of this very law. Peter B has spoken eloquently. A lot of well-meaning Nigerians has spoken about the suspension of this very law that is of effect today. In fact, as we speak, most commercial financial institutions have, started sending message to their customers, inundating them about the new reforms. So, what's your view? Let's take it from there.
Yes, I am not a tax expert. Yes. However, one does not need to be before you understand the dynamics of all of these things and implications as it affects you as a citizen. But notwithstanding, the point is, let's begin from the yes, like you said, the tax law. That was a good event that showed up in 2025, and like I said, the implication or the how much that tax issue is going to impact the Nigerian society, perhaps as we move into 2027, 2026, a lot of these things will become clearer. But talking about the law taking effect, yes, I remember very well when the president introduced the tax law. In fact, prior to that, he set up the tax reform committee, headed by Taiwo Yedele, and eventually they came up with, a recommendation for, the total reform of the tax system, tax administration system in Nigeria, which also includes the institutions that oversee, revenue collection and tax issues. Of course, that issue generated a lot of furore. Eventually, a a political solution was applied, which I believe, I feel very strongly that, what brought the resolution was a lot of political solutions that were applied, and eventually the National Assembly came up with the law. Now the National Assembly came up with the law, and the president signed it into law, to take effect from January 2026. Here we are today. But like you rightly pointed out, towards the dying days of 2025, another issue came up. Why Nigerians were still grappling with, or rather, why the advocacy for the law was still ongoing. I mean, sensitizing people in various aspects that the implications of the law come 2026. The banks were doing theirs, the tax agencies were doing theirs, and many other institutions were also trying to bring the implication of that to their to the awareness of the people. While all that was going on, what I call an ugly issue came up. The accusation that, look, the copy that the president signed into law is at variance with what the National Assembly passed. Now, to me, as a Nigerian, and as a public affairs analyst, and as a communications person, I believe that is a very serious issue. Very, very serious. Now, I'm happy that the president, in his address to the nation this morning, made reference to it. However, I am not quite satisfied with how the president treated the matter. Because in fact, what I expect the government to do is to, in the spirit of transparency, in the spirit of honesty, in the spirit of good governance, is to, yes, a court declined to, grant an injunction to that respect. That is a court. The court does not have our mandate. The court does not carry the weight and the mandate of the people. The court is carrying the weight and the mandate of the law. But the president carries the weight and the mandate of the feelings, aspirations of the people of Nigeria. He is the carrier of, what we yearn for. Right? He is the harbinger of good governance. Now, the president is the chief welfare officer of the country. The president, as a matter of fact, is the one who takes it as a matter of importance, the responsibility to ensure that at every point in time, the Nigerian people is not shortchanged. He is number one man along that value chain. So, for me, yes, the need to kick off the tax regime is very, very, very important. There's no country in the world that, will take their tax system very lightly. But it is also important that at every point in time, you ensure that you carry the Nigerian people along. Now, this accusation has come up that, look, the copy that was signed into law is not the same thing that was mandated, that was passed by the National Assembly. I should have thought that, in line with the principle of good governance, transparency, and honesty, what the president probably should have done was immediately, in conjunction with the National Assembly, set up a committee that will be, that will cut across not just people in the presidency, not just people in the executive arm of government, but people in the legislature, people in the civil society organization, people in the media, and security agencies will be there. Then that committee, and the president will say, yes, I signed this into law, but the implemented, because for the National Assembly to, if that is correct, if that allegation is correct, is a grievous offense. And wherever the mistake comes from, you must bring, if you trace the mistake to any human being, to any person or institution, that person will be made to account why that discrepancy came in. But if it is something that is obvious, maybe a mistake, it will be corrected. And the Nigerian people will see that it has been corrected. Not only that, if at the end of the day it was just either politics or mere allegation, it will also become very obvious. Because they say justice must not only be done, it must be seen. That means once you have your eyes are functioning. You need to see it. So I don't think insisting that like the president said that, well, that they are aware that some people have raised these issues, but they don't think there's any substantial thing. How did you come about that there's nothing substantial? How can you arrive at the point that there's nothing? Did you set up a committee? When did you set up the committee? Who are members of the committee? Who are the members? To what extent have they gone? How have they consulted? How have they established that indeed there's no issue? So I think that the president should have, it's a temporary suspension. Nobody's saying that the tax regime cannot take off. It has to take off because that tax law is tied to the economic survival of our country. It is good, and even the social survival, it is good. But let us not be driven by let us not be driven by our desire to hurry off the implementation at the expense of social justice. Because if indeed the law was tampered with, it's a grievous injustice, is a major social injustice, which must not be allowed to lie fallow. And by the way, what should actually spike up the seriousness in this is the quarter where the accusation is coming from. I think some members of National Assembly flagged off this issue. It didn't come from the press. It didn't come from the civil society groups. It didn't come from critics or people you may call opponents of the government or from the opposition party. It came from some members of the National Assembly. That's why on matters of this nature that border on integrity, on matters of this nature that border on social justice and transparency, you deal with it as quick as possible and dispense with it in a very transparent manner to put the matter to rest.
Right. Having said that, you think about the fact if tomorrow is uncovered that yes, the law was tampered with different from what was passed, you think that has overshadowed any good or intended good that this reform and the law would bring about?
Of course. You see, because what is the law? What should be the law is an agreement between what the National Assembly passed and what the president signed. If there's no concordance, if there's no agreement between these two elements, you see, because when a law, you see, that's why those who the masters of this process were very careful ab initio. When if you are the president today, you have a responsibility to govern, isn't it? And the law recognizes that, look, in your ability to govern, you can come up with ideas that can be good for your country. Now, if you practice democracy like we do, no matter how good, no matter how pure that your idea is, the system says the best we can call it is a bill. It's just a bill. It is not a law, right? It's just like I studied theater arts. Fundamentally, if you come up with an idea now for a script, let's say a script for a movie, yes, you are the original. You came up with the original. You are the creator of the whole thing. You are just an idea man. Until that script is transmuted into that story is transmuted into a professional script. We can't say this is a script. If we call it a script, we are giving it a name that does not belong to it. So no matter how beautiful the idea from the president is just a bill. Until that bill is subjected to pass through the rigorous processes of becoming a law. And even after the National Assembly have finished their job on it, it is perfect. It is still not a law. Until it goes back to the president. The president takes a look at it and is satisfied, and he appends his signature, then it becomes a law. Now, if the National Assembly has finished their job, and what they did, for any reason whatsoever, even if it's only you change where they're supposed to be is, you change it to was. Even if you have where you have its, where you call its, and you change it to it is, you put apostrophe before s, it is no longer the law. So that is why there has to be an agreement. So if somebody has come up with an accusation to say what the National Assembly passed is not exactly what the president signed, that allegation needs to be cleared. If it is not cleared, then that is no longer the law as processed by elected representatives in the National Assembly. Okay. It becomes somebody else's, creation or conclude or whatever. Right. So that is why that matter, like I said, yes, the president spoke to he alluded to it in his speech, but that is not enough. I am not satisfied. I think what because if the president said, but that not much has come up, you don't need, because of the gravity of the accusation. These are not things you wait until somebody brings you evidence. What you should do is, in order to convince the people, in order to let the people know that, look, this government is open and transparent. In this government, we are clean. I think that what the president should have done is set up a committee of not just members of the executive, the National Assembly, executive, possibly judiciary if he wants to, the press, the civil society organizations, possibly the labor as well, or one or two other interest groups like the professionals and the security agencies, and they are not going to make law. So no, it's not a question of are they going to what are you talking about after National Assembly must have made the law. What are you raising this committee again? Because of this accusation, then it will not be the job of this committee to get what the National Assembly, the harmonized copy from the National Assembly, and the copy that Mr. President signed, look at them line upon line, precepts upon precepts, page by page, to establish if there is a dichotomy. If at the end of the day, nothing like that, everybody will know that it was pure politics, and the credibility of Mr. President will jump up. For me, I think that is what should have been done. It's not just by dismissing it. What about if at the end of the day, the contrary is the case? That is the question.
All right. Moving away from the credibility issues surrounding this law, but as we speak, the law is in effect in Nigeria, and I do know that you say you're not as experts.
Yes.
But there are still things we could talk about.
Yeah. Of course, it has socio-political, your perspectives.
Yes, but I'm looking at the government told us that this is an attempt at not just unifying the various acts and laws, tax laws in Nigeria, that it will simplify the system. But I want to ask, coming into 2026, do you see this law as having any impact on the living standard of the people?
Of course it will, certainly to a great extent. You see, people, if of course you as a journalist, I'm sure you must have been following, the social perspective to all of these whole things, prior to today. You will know very well that, in fact, it has even become a social joke. They say the fear of tax law in 2026 is the beginning of wisdom. Why are people saying so? It's because of the implication. Everybody understands the implication of this. First and foremost, thank God that the federal government came up with a clarification, which the banks have equally communicated to their customers. One of the things, that one of the issues that were in public domain was, look, come January 1, 2026, if your account is not linked with either your taxpayer's identification number or NIN, that the bank account will become inoperative until you comply, and that sent a lot of jittery to people. And in my own little cocoon, like I said, I'm not a tax expert. I said to myself, the government does not need to disrupt the entire system, because you know what just like when you had BVN, to an extent, is it that we're not learning in this country? Because when we had BVN, yes, government came up to say, okay, on so and so day, if you don't have a BVN, your account is going to be suspended and things like that. And you know how people respond to social issues in this country. That's number one. Number two, you also know how our system, the capacity of our system to accommodate, the kind of surge that comes with this kind of announcements. At the end of the day, what we end up having is that you go to the banks, we have thousands of people there, and economy is a bit affected, because many people will leave their places of business, converge in the banks, wanting to comply with the system. And at the end of the day, there's less if it's just that in Nigeria, nobody takes time to calculate all of this. If there are agencies that take time to calculate this, when some of these things happen, they will tell you the quantum of the amount of money that is lost in monetary terms, what the country loses in monetary terms, when productivity is brought low. Because if you have an account and you can't operate that account, all your life is tied around that account, which work are you going to be doing? You go and sort it out so that your family, you have money to sort out your problems. So now I said to myself, why does the government want to do this? This problem came up during the BVN. It came up again during the NIN. So why are we repeating the problem? There are more creative ways that government can make people to comply. But thankfully, as the heat became, and I because the banks are already sending messages, that look, for personal accounts, your account will still run. If you don't have a taxpayer's identification number, if you had before, if there are people who had TIN before. If you had TIN before, it's still okay. You can operate it. And even if you don't have, as long as you have a NIN, you can still be operative. Your account will still be running. But try as much as possible to link up your account as you move along. And I think that is the way. Just the same way what the court did, what Supreme Court did in the issue of the old Naira note and the new Naira note. You saw how the thing would have destabilized our system until Supreme Court came to save the situation. These are men who are not economists, who are not in government. They were the one that came to save the day, to say, look, the old Naira and the new Naira can continue to run concurrent. UCBN, on your own, administratively, as it is convenient for you, we can gradually fade out the old Naira note. Instead of just making a blanket ban to say, on so and so day, the old Naira note becomes invalid. What about a man who has 20,000 naira of it in his house? He has not been able to spend, and that is the only money he has. You throw him and his family in total disarray. So that is why, for me, when policymakers in Nigeria come to make policies, when I hear these policies, I sit back and I say, look, don't they have advisors? Okay, fine. Granted, the fact some of these policymakers, they may be grappling with a lot. There are so many things on their desk, but they must have policy. I mean, they must have advisors who should be able to, at their leisure time, to call them, say, hello, sir, this is the feedback from the society we are getting on this. Take a second look at this. We don't get stubborn over it. In governance, there's nothing like stubbornness. Every issue is evaluated based on the feedback that you get from the consumers of that government policy.
All right. Sir, I know just a little bit on this whole issue. There's a whole lot of Nigerians are so much keen on concerning this issue of tax. I will move away from it shortly, but before I let you rest on this very issue, there is a pertinent question, concerning that the government is telling us that this tax will help the common man in the society, in the sense that for you to be eligible to pay, you have to earn up to 800,000 naira per annum. And I begin to ask the question, is there anyone in Nigeria, when you check minimum wage in Nigeria, for example, which is 70,000, That will bring it to about 840,000 naira in a year. So at the end of the day, the common man is crying. The rich are crying, entrepreneurs and business owners. And I want to ask the question, going by this new law, this tax law, who actually is paying?
You know, like I said also, I must also re-establish the fact that, like I said, I am not a tax expert. However, these issues are very clear, and you know, they are written in plain languages, and we should be able to understand them to be able to make, you know, on the surface assessment. Yes, we all want a tax. For me, there's nothing wrong in tax reform. You know, it's part of the responsibility of government to reform our social, you know, governance systems to ensure a better society. But in doing that, there are pertinent questions to ask. I have to a reasonable extent. I've tried to, you know, catch up with the arguments for and against the tax, and I've also tried to, you know, read the snippets of, you know, what the law says. I don't have so much issues against the new tax regime, but for me, I don't think it's as good as the government is painting it. The new tax law, you remember, is about 4 different laws now meshed together into one in a single tax law.
Yes.
In a single law. I have questions that I have not been able to see answers concerning the new law. Yes, you say okay, fine. Those who earn about 800,000 naira and below, you know, they are exempted from payee. But that is payee, that is on payee, right? And you also say on VAT, some categories of items are exempted, not all. But there are also a whole lot of other things that fall within the tax, within the VAT, that those who are exempted from the payee are also going to pay. Many of them. That is number 2. Number 3. Now, yes, those who earn more in Nigeria, and I think that is where the issue has always been, you know, expanding the tax net. The government itself, many of the things that are going to fall under, let me give you an example. Number 1, the issue is, up till now, as long as I'm concerned, the government is still not very clear about taxing income on personal accounts. Yes, they've tried to present and provide an explanation, but I'm not clear. It's still not clear. It's still a bit vague. Because if you say you're not going to tax somebody's personal income, provided that the income that account is not used for business. Yes, we also agree that there are many people today who use their personal accounts for business. We cannot deny that fact. There are people who do that very clearly. Number 1, I think what government should do is to make a law for any business transaction above so and so amount. And even if there's a law on that, insist on the implementation. If you're going to pay somebody, if you're going to pay somebody for goods and services up to so and so amount, if somebody is giving you a personal account for payment, you the payee refuse, right? To enable the government, in other words, if I have rendered a service to you or I've sold goods to you, that means it's a business transaction. Now you have to pay me if the amount is up to a certain amount. And when I'm supplying you an account with which you pay the money, if it is a personal account, you should refuse. That will mandate me to go and provide a company account, right? And even if you are going to do that once, the second time refuse. If you refuse, then I'll be forced to go and provide a company account. If I have a company already, I'll be forced to go and open an account for it and comply with what the law says before I can open a company account, so that government can appropriately monitor and tax my business transactions. That is number 1. If I don't have a company yet, I'll be forced to go, since it's now business, I'll be forced to go and register a company, and the process of registering a company must be, you know, made seamless so that more people will be attracted to it. Now, but when you now say that you will monitor my personal account, that if you discover that I'm using it for business, how do you determine that I'm using it for business? Is it, how do you know that the money this man is giving me, I heard somebody say if the payment is consistent over a period of time, that is balderdash. That is balderdash. Are you saying that what, you see, because the government has still not told us what is the yardstick to determine a payment that is strictly business? That is what I'm here to get explanation from.
Right.
On that issue.
As we speak, more questions, you know, there are more questions than answers, and we hope we'll get from the government perspective on all of this. But before I let you breathe on the issue of the economy, because we are still on the economy, and I would want to get your opinion on the presidential New Year speech to Nigerians, especially as regards the economy. But before we get into that, let's take a look at 2025, where we'll see Dangote and the petroleum importers, you know, were totally at war. The energy sector was dominated by a price war, as local marketers and slashed their price, because Dangote forced their hands to slash their price, and with that they claim that, you know, they will lose billions as well. But what I'm asking, coming into the new year, what is your perspective on this whole scenario? Do you think Nigeria should encourage and welcome more of such, you know, discrepancy and disagreement between a private refinery owner and the petroleum marketers and importers in Nigeria? Or is that another failing of our government?
No, you see, we first and foremost, what we should ask ourselves is, at the end of the day, who is the beneficiary of this whole processes now? We have said it before. Part of the challenges that we have in this country today is because we have not done the right thing. If we do the right thing, we will get the positive dividends. See, let me tell you, number one, the question to ask here is, before now, petroleum refining, and to a larger extent, you know, the downstream sector is purely controlled by NNPC, right? Now, until Dangote came into the fray. Now, to start with, that is a break of monopoly. Monopoly is not to the benefit of the people. As an economic policy, is not to the benefit of the people. That is where it is. What we have said is, the government should do everything possible, the way Dangote was assisted, right, to come up to where he is today. More organizations should be, whether they are modular in nature or they are you know, large in nature, they should be assisted. They should be assisted, because if we have many more players in the downstream sector in Nigeria, and even in the upstream sector, there will be competition. And once there is competition among major players, the consumers of the products become better off. Let's use the communication sector, for instance. We recall that prior to 2000, telecommunication services in Nigeria were rendered mainly by Nitel of old. And you know how difficult it was then. In fact, if you recall, I don't know, I believe that you are old enough to know when some characters who are in the public scene today were in charge of the telecommunications management of this country, when statements were made that telephone is not for the poor. Now, why was that statement relevant at that time? Because it was under heavy monopoly. But as we moved on, telecommunication services was, you know, deregulated. Many more players came into the scene. Competition naturally will set in, because when you have more players coming into the scene, competition will automatically set in. And price, you see price fluctuating to the benefit of the consumer. So in the petroleum sector, let there be more players. What Dangote did, some other person somewhere may dislike him. I'm not interested whether they like him or they dislike him. But ultimately, today, a liter of petrol is about 8, and for me, it's still very high for a country that produces oil. So we want more and more players to be licensed. Let them come into the fray. If they like, let them accuse themselves. They know what each other is doing.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, what we want is the pump price of fuel to go down for an average consumer in Nigeria. Because that, I mean, for me, it's scandalous that we are buying a liter of fuel. A country that is blessed. Where is the energy security that the government should produce? I mean, should provide for economic activities. Today, if you have a small business in Nigeria today, of course, we all understand how our power is functioning, our public power supply is functioning. If you have a small business today, either a barbering salon or a hairdressing salon, where you need power to run that small business, you know how much you spend by buying fuel to run the small generator. So the government needs to do more, and not just to do more, empower modular refineries. In fact, I look for, why is it that even the states, many of the state governments in Nigeria, nobody is going into they don't need to build a refinery as big as Dangote's own. 1, 2, 3 states can come together under a joint agreement. They float a refinery. So we need more of that. And at the end of the day, if they have to accuse themselves, let them accuse themselves. Because another angle to it is also that, you know, of course, you saw that accusation led to the ouster of many or some of the heads of the agencies.
Yes.
So you know, one thing about in a situation where people, one of the you see, sharing of booty is a negative phenomenon, right? But there's an inherent advantage that comes out of it. Most times it leads to exposure on criminality. When people, you know, whether by robbery or by breakage or by looting or whatever thing, however it happens. Now, go and wait for them. If you try to track them and you're not able to track them, the sharing of the booty is another junction where you wait for them. Most times you see fingers pointing, accusing fingers at each other, and from there, and through that means you get to know about, you know, things that are even hidden. Dangote made a lot of accusations against some of these gentlemen. I'm sure some of these accusations you and I didn't know. You and I didn't know before now, but now we know.
All right, Sir Emeka, Odom, on that note, let's just go on a short break, and when we return, we'll continue to probe on these very issues.
Thank you very much.
The eagle stands as a majestic symbol of strength, clarity, and vision. Its ability to soar above storms signifies resilience, while its shaped sight represents focus. This is why many nations, including Nigeria, use the eagle as an emblem of nation pride. Eagles do not fear challenges, they embrace them. They fly higher when the winds become strong, rising above obstacles rather than avoiding them. This teaches us that problems are not barriers, but stepping stones for those who dare. To live like an eagle is to stay focused, courageous, and disciplined. It is to see opportunities where others see only difficulties. The sky is not your limit.
Thank you for staying with us on the Insights, and we've been with Sir Emeka Odom, a journalist, development communication expert, and a public affairs analyst. And we'll be looking at the mega shift and 2026 battle plan. Sir, yes, we've been looking at the economy, but before finally we'll rest on this very issue,
Okay.
I just want to ask a very quick one. When you heard the president give his New Year message, Were you reassured, especially from the economic outlook and perspective for 2026?
Very unfortunate, and I'm very sorry if I disappoint a lot of people. The truth is that I'm not moved with that speech. You know, that is me. That is not to say that there's anything wrong with the speech, but I'm not moved with that speech. And my reasons are very clear and very simple. You see, since the president came into power in 2023, for me, it's been the same, the same rhetorics, and it's becoming moribund to my own ears. Oh, this is the reason why we had to devalue the currency. Oh, we had to, remove the subsidy on fuel. Oh, we had to float the naira, devalue the currency, remove subsidies here and there. That's the same story. And then promises of things we've not seen. My understanding of these simple issues, the matrix of good governance, is even when you are bringing a policy that is very hard, that's going to be very harsh, you yourself as a leader must know, we must have an idea how this policy is going to react on the people, and provide a succor ahead of time, right? But we didn't see any of these things in this administration. Promises were made. Where are the CNG vehicles today? I thought by now the CNG system will be so available that if you just want to go and change your the energy system of your vehicle to CNG, you just easily drive into any of the centers with very little expenditure. You change. Today that's not happening. Look at the gas. Look at cooking gas in Nigeria today. About 1,000 something for a kg. These are some of the things that are adding to the pressure that Nigerians are going through. Now the new tax regime. How much are we paying for electricity today? We came up with the idea of Band A. We know how. An average Nigerian, you buy fuel for your car, you buy fuel for generator in the house, and you buy fuel for probably the generator in your little place of work. And all of this is in exception to all the other expenditures we have to do: school fees, house rent, and that are almost going up on a daily basis. Right. How else do you want the life expectancy of Nigerians not to drop with all of these things? So I think that the all of these promises of we're going to do better, we will do this, and the promises are far more than what we can see on ground. That's my thinking. So all of these speeches, and one thing that has always happened in Nigeria is people come to write very beautiful speech for the president or the governor, or, and they come out and read all of these speeches. And why the principal is reading these speeches, the rest of the countrymen and women are completely and totally detached from the speech. Even a common man on the street, even somebody who doesn't follow events will tell you, the man just talking, oh no big thing where they happen here.
All right. For want of time, Emeka, you understand that there are a lot of issues to unravel as we set the agenda for 2026.
Yes.
But due to the signal I'm receiving, I want us to quickly look at two key issues that shaped 2025 and would set the agenda for 2026. One of such issues was the Christmas Day precision strike in Sokoto, which, according to promise by President Donald Trump, that will be swift and sweet. And indeed, I don't know if you agree that it was indeed swift and sweet as well. But what I want to ask, do you see this event shaping the outlook, the political outlook of the country in 2026 and economy as well?
Yes, because security, by every without any doubt, usually affects every other aspect of life. You recall that in 2014, the general election, one of the issues that probably worked against President Goodluck Jonathan at that time was the security situation in the country. A lot of people felt, look, the country can't continue this way, So the security has a direct impact. Now, yes, we saw the intervention, the American intervention on on Christmas Day, and also the rhetoric that followed suit. The Nigerian, it was a collaborative strike. It was this, it was that. Even though today we don't know, because see, events of this nature, after it, there's always a narrative that comes, an official report that we can hold on to say this strike, these are the people that were targeted, this is how successful it has gone. It's not just to come and say it was a successful event. There are benchmarks. And these benchmarks, you look at them, the indices, okay, based on so and so. But I don't think we have any of those. We only told it was, and we also told that it was a precision strike. Now, another narrative is coming up. People, some people in Kwara State are saying that now to all of those things, nobody can say this is the situation till today. So I think that these are the. But talking about whether it's going to in 2026, yeah, I think it was it yesterday or so, and I was reading a report. Was it Riley Moore, the American senator, who said that more of such should be expected, and you see, because a lot of Nigerians are not happy with the security situation in Nigeria. And most importantly, it's not just that there's something wrong with the way security. A lot of people also feel, many people feel that irrespective of what we are being told, irrespective of the few movements we are seeing here and there, or few actions we are seeing here and there, some people believe that a lot of more political will is expected to deal with these issues. Perhaps the level of political will that we are seeing so far is not enough. Some people feel there should be more, right? And that more that is needed, that more is there local capacity for it? Does local is there local? I mean, is the capacity available locally, or it is something that appeal will have to be sent and help canvas externally? These are questions that need to be answered. What American people came to do here, without American intervention, does Nigeria have the capacity to do it and even do more? If yes, why do we need to wait for the Americans to come and do it? Why haven't we done it? If no, how come we have not appealed to America before now? How come it was only Donald Trump started shouting that this came? Is it that America themselves have been approached and they said no, and it is only now that they are willing, or they have not been approached? So a lot of things, a lot of questions
still needs to be answered. All right. And finally, because I'm getting signals, I'm sorry, but and I know our audience too will be, because there are many many things to unravel, and it's been a very fruitful one. But before I let you go, part of the events that did shape 2025 that we know would set the agenda for 2026 and 2027 going forward. Though you rightly observe, we do not know if the election will come in this year or the next. But that event is the mega party formation.
Yes.
We saw the opposition figures like Atiku and Peter Obi, coalescing into the ADC, leading to the event that happened here in Enugu yesterday at ANEKE resort, where Peter Obi formally declared his stand with the ADC. Do you see this very action of being part of the events that will shape 2026, especially the politics of Nigeria going into 2027?
Absolutely. You see, I have also said this before. In fact, sometime around, was it around February or March 2025, I had said that, look, the opposition must come together. When the whole talk of mega party was, the issue of mega party or no mega party, and I said the opposition must come together. You see, whether I would like it or not, today the president has become a strong political figure. He's a sitting president and a good political strategist at that. You can see the result. A lot of governors are gravitating towards him. This is not accidental. There is a careful and strategic plan put in place and followed. So you don't plan to in football today, if you want to go and play Brazil or Spain or any of the big superpowers in world football, you need to get your acts together. Get the best of your best 11, the best of your 11, and perhaps a good reserve in case, before you can say, let us go and play with this team. That's the way it is. And I am happy that P2B has formally declared for ADC, and you shouldn't stop there. You see, I am an advocate of good governance, and there's no way democracy. See, you can't have good governance when in a system that proclaims democracy and something else is happening. You can't get good governance. So for good governance to take place in a democratic system, opposition must be very, very varied. Opposition must be very, very varied. Now, if the opposition parties today are so fragmented and weak to be able to challenge the ruling party, let them pull their resources together. Perhaps when they put their, you see, because a sitting government, a ruling party will naturally be happy when the opposition is becoming weaker and weaker. It's a natural phenomenon. If I'm going to play a football match with you, your team, you are a coach, and you hear that your opponents, their super players are injured, as much as we feel sorry that they are injured, but we'll be happy that they are not fit for the game.
Sure.
There are no two ways about it. It doesn't mean that you are not a bad person, no. But it's a natural course of things. So the opposition must be formidable. They must be coherent. They must come together. And I think that the characters I'm seeing there in the opposition party now, the former vice president, you see, they have even wasted too much time. Because if you look at, they shouldn't have allowed the president to get the mileage he has gotten since after the last election. But in 2023 general election, the president got about 8 million votes, right? Yes. Now, P2B got about 6.1 million votes. Atiku Abubakar got about 6.4 or so million votes. Now, if they put the two together, it by far outweighs what Mr. President got. And I'm sure the APCs are aware of that. And so, naturally, their nightmare will always be a coming together of Obi and Atiku. APC cannot tell me that it doesn't give them a nightmare. If they say so, they are being very dishonest politically. And so they will be very happy as long as these two gentlemen are not able to work together. But the moment they are able to work together, is a cause for concern. And this is what the opposition party should have seen a long time ago, explored it, and if they had explored, if they had exploited this particular option long before now, perhaps the president wouldn't have gotten the mileage that he has today. Because he has made a whole lot of incursion and inroads, even on the territories that ordinarily belongs to the other parties. But here we are. It is what it is.
It is what it is. And that is it for today on The Insight. And today we've been looking at the agenda for 2026. I bet the issues that shaped 2025, looking at the mega shift and the 2026 battle plan. And with us in the studio giving deboning these issues has been Sir Emeka Odom, journalist, development communication expert and public affairs analyst. Sir Emeka, it's a pleasure to have you on the Insight.
Thank you so
But
much.
I bet while on air, I will still invite you further because there are a whole lot of issues, and I know our audience will be thrilled to, drink from your wealth of experience and analytical prowess concerning Nigerian issues, which are, you agree with me, are inexhaustible. As we discuss them, more continue to unravel, more things continue to unfold. But thank you very much for speaking with us on the 1st of January 2026.
Thanks for having me. Once again, Happy New Year.
Yeah, same to you. And to you, our viewers, remember that on the Insight, your views matter. Let us know what you think about these issues. Reach us with the hashtag, the Insight, all at ANEKE TV, at ANEKE YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. So we'll come your way next time. I still remain your host, Uche Osai. Bye-bye.